thank you very much for having me here. I'm extremely excited to talk to you about real-time marketing. What I'm going to do over the next 45 minutes, start very much from the lens of marketing, from the lens of everything that we at PepsiCo have to worry about day in and day out, then talk about approach the world through that lens, talk about some interesting things we're doing, and use that as a jumping off point to look at digital marketing more broadly. I think I'll take questions at the end, but this should be a fun ride nevertheless. So I want to start with this first slide. So the way I think about it is, until 3 years ago, I was on the agency side, worked for a long time then, in New York and London and San Francisco. And then I switched to the marketer side. And all of a sudden, my world changed. Everything that I care about and the only thing that truly matters to me now are these two things: driving brand equity for different beverage products and driving sales. Whatever we do in the digital landscape, however we spend our money, however many awards we may get, or conference talks we may do, or be written up in the press, it all doesn't matter. For us, this is fundamentally what matters. So I'm going to keep coming back to this and again. The other piece, and if we take this down a level, that's extremely important, is this. So at PepsiCo Beverages in particular, we're about creating value. So we understand the way our world works. We've been in business a long time, and there are really two simple things at play. We can either gain market share, gain volume, gain sales by having very strong transactional-oriented relationships with our consumers. The one problem with that is, as time passes, it gets harder and harder to price at a premium. And that's a massive problem. So what we've discovered is we have to form and have deep brand-enhancing human connections with our consumers that are all about driving brand loyalty, establishing and forming new lines of revenue, and engaging consumers in new, unique ways. And this might sound like a cliche slide, and it applies to everyone, but we've actually seen in micro-locals and specific markets around the world, when we do this effectively, even if we underprice our competitor by 10, 20%, we still don't gain share. But in markets where we do this effectively, we not only gain share, but we trump our competitor as well. So while this might seem like theory, we live it and see it and the trade-offs, every single day. So we're about creating value, brand equity, and sales. I hope you're still with me and haven't fallen asleep. It's going to get more exciting from this point on. So the first thing I want to talk about is why I'm paranoid, worried, and scared to death about life. And it's a very simple thing. I think it's never, ever been a harder time for marketing, never, ever been a harder time for digital marketing. And if you're on the media side or the agency side, you may think life is good, penetration is going up, percentage shares increasing. But from a marketer side, it's a horrible time. It just is. And the reason is a few things. And it starts with numbers like, so this is the number of status updates published on Facebook in a given month. I think this number is already a little dated, but it's growing exponentially. It's 30 billion, it'll be 50 billion in a few months' time. Soon it'll be 100 billion. Amazing number of Facebook status updates. People on Facebook, an incredible amount. Look at this number, 250 million tweets published every day. Huge number of tweets, those pesky little messages people are tweeting and publishing every day. And we see this around the world. It's much a global phenomenon. It's a new way of communicating. Similarly, 5.3 billion views are the number of online video views in a 24-hour period on YouTube itself. Just in the 24-hour period. I heard this morning from someone that next month, YouTube will be overtaking MTV here in India itself in terms of reach and penetration. Crazy, crazy numbers. Crazy amount of penetration and usage. But there's a big problem with all of this. At least it's a big problem for me. And none of these people care as much about brands the way they once did. All of a sudden, we at Pepsi and other brand marketers around the world are having to compete with all those stupid Facebook status messages, all those tweets out there, All those YouTube cats and dogs and baby video clips, it's crazy time in a sense. The world has gotten a lot more challenging for us. So on the one hand, we're all excited about online penetration and digital usage. On the other side, it's a lot harder than ever before to engage consumers more effectively, to drive equity and sales, and to build our brands. It's not like the good old days where you could depend on your TV spot, you could depend on reach through a big TV buy or a big print buy. Life has gotten a lot more complex. So that's the bad news. That's what I sweat about. But there are a few interesting things that can help. So first and foremost, and Brad alluded to this, these are US numbers, but they apply elsewhere too. Time spent online is increasing dramatically, both on the internet and in mobile. So everyone is going digital. That's one positive. But there's something else that's happening, and I want to raise these questions. So first and foremost, the critical question, everyone can get into the hype of digital, but the critical question is, how much are being talked about? Which brands are being talked about the most? Which brands are in the conversations? And not just in a niche, cute, frivolous sense, but in a mass scale penetration, building their brand sense. Keep in mind, at PepsiCo, our brands are practically at every street corner in most countries around the world. For us to get scale, it's scale with a capital S. So the question for us when you think about digital is, how much scale can we get through digital? So that's the tough thing. How much are people talking about brands online? How much do they care about brands online? But there's also a better side to it. When we think about the positive, I feel, and I strongly believe, there's good news too. No one truly cares whether the source of a conversation, a source of the content, is a brand, a publisher, a government, or a user anymore. So we all grew up in the world, the media ecosystem where church and state were separate. That doesn't matter anymore. And as I get into my presentation, you'll see me discuss this some more. So that's the good news. If you have amazing, compelling content, amazing, compelling ways to engage your consumers, they don't care as much whether you're a brand, whether you're a media company, whether you're an individual, whether you're producing cat videos, whatever it may be. What it also means, though, is that all of a sudden brands use their budgets, their marketing budgets, not just to get distribution, but to produce a lot stronger content and depend on their consumers for the distribution. Now, this is much harder than it sounds. Trust me, we've tried and we've failed and we try and we have different levels of success, but there's no question that that's the future that awaits us. And it also leads to the ultimate question. In this world of hyper-connectedness, is connectedness truly source-free? Do we all truly care about the source? So I'm going to talk about 5 themes, 5 topic areas, and it's going to start with real-time marketing, and through this I'll explain what we're doing, what we feel we matter about, and what matters a lot in the digital space, and how that translates in our marketing efforts around the world and also influencing over time what we do here in India as well. So the first is real-time marketing. And I'm going to start with a very simple concept. And it begins like this. So imagine for a scenario, for a second. Forget you're at AdTech Delhi. Imagine you're me. And imagine I'm, walking down Fifth Avenue in New York, or I'm in, Piccadilly Circus in London, or I'm in, Connaught Place in Delhi. Lovely sunny day, I'm enjoying life. And then imagine all of a sudden, I see Lady Gaga walking towards me. How many of you know Lady Gaga out here? Okay. So you can imagine how freakingly, amazingly excited I would be. I see Lady Gaga walking towards me. And then imagine, just imagine, she has a Pepsi in her hand. I mean, what more could I want in life? Lady Gaga walking towards me, lovely sunny morning, she's drinking a Pepsi, and I'm there right in front of her. By this point, I'd probably be jumping up and down, I might tear off my shirt, I might singing, who knows what I may do. But imagine for a second that I still have my wits about me, and I'm still smart enough to pull out my iPhone and either take a still photograph or a video clip of her drinking that Pepsi, and I catch it in that moment. And then imagine the very next second, that video clip is shot to either our Purchase PepsiCo headquarters in Purchase, New York, or to our different country headquarters around the world. And then imagine within 5 minutes of that video being taken, it's mashed up into some amazing creative, whether still photograph or with Lady Gaga interacting with people or just her of that video drinking that Pepsi. And then imagine if within 10 minutes, to all the Lady Gaga's fans around the world, and no one else, just the Lady Gaga fans around the world, that video is put in front of them. And they know that video was shot 5 minutes ago, and they know that Lady Gaga is on Fifth Avenue in New York. That's immensely powerful. Lady Gaga has had a historic relationship with Pepsi. Total sense to do that. I've taken out our legal department for drinks many a time, so they would let this go by. They won't, worry about being sued or start suing me or something like that. But just imagine the power of that one video clip. Now, the funny thing about this is that one video clip, with a few phone calls, it's easy for me, as with most marketers, make sure that reaches the 20, 40, 50, even 100 million Lady Gaga fans around the world, and just them. That's mind-blowing. And not anyone else. My mom, who's in the audience, she's not a Lady Gaga fan. She had better not see that video clip. It will be totally wasted on her. But that's the power of what we can do in real-time marketing. The beauty of this is available today. We can do it, but we aren't doing it. And when we think about why money should move into digital, it's not because of time spent, in my opinion. It's not because, the youth are staring at their mobile phones every 5 seconds. It's because of these kinds of amazing hyper-targeting real-time opportunities. Now, a lot of you are digital marketers, so this makes intuitive sense for you. This is where I have something to tell you. From a marketing point, from general marketing, especially in a large Fortune 50 company, this is crazy talk. Because we typically go from strategy and insights to execution in market over a 9-10 month period. Typically what happens during that time is we do a whole bunch of research, we do our focus groups, we do our surveys, we do shadowing, we do all kinds of things. We then spend 2 months figuring out our creative, we analyze TVs, we go back and forth, we test the scripts, we look at the boards, we scratch our heads, we sprinkle a little bit of digital masala on it or something else. We then hand it to a media agency, they come back with a plan, we act all important and scrutinize it. By the time it hits market, 9-10 months have passed, what we had thought of or what that original insight is stale, it's dated. That whole Lady Gaga example, it's powerful because in that little creative that would go to those 40 million Lady Gaga fans, they would know it was shot that very morning or 5 minutes ago, and that Lady Gaga's on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, and for the Lady Gaga fans in Manhattan, they'd probably run to Fifth Avenue. That's the power of it. But no marketing organization is set up for this. The way we budget, we're figuring out 2013 budgets now and media allocations for that. The way we think about strategy and insight, the way we execute. And I say this with confidence, knowing that it's not just us. Lots and lots of large organizations work this way. The biggest problem, though, is when we work in a 9-10 month cycle, we're totally out of sync with those Facebook status updates, those tweets. It's so hard to compete with a tweet that was published 5 seconds ago from my friend to me versus what a brand may try to push towards me, especially if what they're pushing towards me is 9 months or something like that. So real-time marketing is changing this all up, starting from scratch, rebuilding the marketing processes so that you can go from insight to execution in a 9-second time frame. There are a few key elements to this. So the first is real-time insights. I mean, I happen to be walking down Fifth Avenue in my fantasy, and I saw Lady Gaga. But often that's not always the case. You need to have the right tools and infrastructure. Some are easy, like the social media tools, but there are also a lot of others that are needed to capture those real-time insights. You need to have quick real-time responses. You need to have a real-time content studio. You know, I joke with my agencies that if I send, the Lady Gaga video clip to them, they would come back with a 2-month project plan, and that just won't cut it. We need to have real-time content studios. We talk about brands as publishers. The first step is to have content studios so that we're able to mash up content with our own owned and others. It needs to allow for real-time co-creation. I fundamentally believe that nothing should be launched in the digital ecosystem without it hitting just 10,000 people first and seeing the response before it goes on a mass scale. But the tools and processes need to be in place in that. It needs real-time distribution. We at PepsiCo Beverages now measure our reach, not just based on, cans on shelves, but also in terms of how many can we touch in any given minute without investing a single media dollar. And because that's going to become more and more important. Because yes, our media partners help us reach consumers in amazing dynamic ways, but our own distribution matters so much as well. And lastly, that has to trigger real-time engagement beyond that as well. And this all needs to be set in the geoculture frame. So while there may be 100 million Lady Gaga fans around the world and this ad is reaching all of them, it needs to be contextualized for every single wherever they may be. So that's the fun side of real-time marketing. And I love talking about my Lady Gaga fantasies. But there's also a slightly darker side to this that requires thought as well. And that's the deep, dark data world. Now, when I talk about this subject, I'm fully aware that I'm putting my career at risk. Because each time a brand talks about data and connecting data together, it's sort of like a journalist's dream to say, these brands are compiling all this data together and they are sort of becoming like the CIA or the FBI or something like that. But it's important to think about the future of data and the role it's going to play. In this real-time world, we have, in my opinion, there's 6 pieces of data that really matter, that we have finally access to, that are incredibly valuable when stitched together in privacy-protected ways. The first is social data. So I look at my CRM database, and it has, of course, millions and millions of users in it. For the first time, I can tell, if I want to, the influence of a given person. Now, this depends on whether I have my right privacy policies in place, but all of a sudden, I know that all users or all consumers or all customers are not created equal. For the first time, I can analyze trend data, both about my customers and my consumers, and also about what's happening in the broader pop culture ecosystem. I can correlate digital ad data. When I'm targeting a consumer, I can see where they've come from and where they're going next, and I can, structure my message that way. I can tie that in with interaction data, the way they've interacted with my brand and my marketing programs in the past. I can feed that back into this deep, big, massive CRM engine, tie it in potentially to sales, because we do a lot of digital couponing as well, and then eventually recognize who are the biggest advocate brands and treat them more and more special. And also identify and track advocates online. No one's been able to do this. We didn't even have a third of the data points. The brands that are going to succeed in the future, without a doubt, in my opinion, are the ones who figure out not just this side of this slide, but that side as well, and in ways that protect the privacy of the consumers. It's a massive opportunity, and one that's about to hit all of us. This means a few other things. One is focusing on location, extremely, extremely important. So one of the reasons why I joined PepsiCo and was excited to join and be at PepsiCo, so one was, of course, just the opportunity to work with such fabulous and amazing brands. But another reason was Life's a lot harder when you don't sell your product online, trust me. So everything I do, everything my team does, we have to drive either brand equity or to in-store sales. Thanks to mobile phones and location-based data, it's getting a lot easier to do those connections. The way I target Lady Gaga fans on Fifth Avenue will be very different the way I target those in Connaught Place or in Piccadilly Circus. That's the power. The other piece that this allows us, and apologies it's a little blurred, but it allows us to leverage whole new forms of research. So to give you an example, last year in the US, we did a major advertising campaign with Snoop Dogg, the rapper. How many of you know him over here? Look at that. Probably know him better than I do then. So wonderful campaign, mostly, it was mostly TV-centric, but we did something interesting with it. We looked at the number of fans we have on Facebook, or the number of likes. We looked at the number of likes he had on Facebook. We looked at the overlaps between them, and we could analyze this. And then through the course of the campaign, we looked at how those numbers changed. So through our relationship with him, we were tracking whether we were getting more Snoop fans, whether he was getting more Pepsi fans, and whether we were both growing together. Fascinating opportunity. We've never been able to look at celebrities through this lens before. For that matter, we've never been able to look at media companies or media properties through this lens before. But we can. And it matters most when you look at it through the slice of a single moment time. So another key piece to all of this is using this to make smart choices. Now to talk about this one day last year. September 16, 2011. So, in my world, so we worry about Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Sobe, Am, Sierra Mist, a lot of these beverages. And Pepsi, which we spend a lot of time on, obviously, because that's our flagship brand, is a pop culture brand. So whatever's happening in pop culture matters to us. September 6, 2011 was a really, really important day. And it was a really important day for 4 different reasons. So first and foremost, India was playing England in cricket. So as you can imagine, massive deal, massive day. Secondly, it was Prince Harry's birthday. Some other people, a very massive deal as well. And that was a challenge, because even though we're a large brand, large marketer, we definitely did not have the budgets to reach people who care about these 4 different things. However, for the first time, something we'd have never known before, as the morning unfolded, we were able to tell which was turning out to be the biggest deal in the world. Which of these 4 was affecting, influencing, serving as an emotional high most people. And that's how we then framed our marketing efforts. So can anyone guess which was the biggest event of these 4? 4? Someone over there is saying number 3. It was actually the Manchester United game. So by a mile, it was the most talked about online, most engaged. So what we did was we then targeted all the Manchester United fans, because they won around the world, congratulating them from Pepsi on winning the game. They loved it. We were culturally relevant in the moment. It mattered a lot more than Prince Harry's birthday. Some folks can understand that. More than America's Got Talent finale, more than the India versus England cricket match. That's the power of real-time marketing. Because we were doing it in that moment, on a mass scale, with the right insights, we were able to win that day. If someone doesn't know what Prince Harry looks like, there he is. So that's all about real-time marketing. Think Lady Gaga, think compressing a 9-month marketing cycle down to 9 minutes or 9 seconds. That's the future marketing. And it also gets even more interesting when it's not just through digital, but when all of a sudden through addressable TV, that Lady Gaga video is now pushed through TV advertising. So the next piece that I want to talk about is the world of connectedness in real-time marketing. It's another really interesting concept and really critical. So key thing to note here is it starts with this premise. So, as I talked about earlier, we know we win when we establish human connections with our consumers. The way we do that cannot be through the traditional structure of what an advertiser is, buying placement, creative, and just pushing it out there and using the muscle of the brands to get attention. Our role in the consumer ecosystem needs to change. So as we think about our role, we think about it as beyond sponsorship. So we see ourselves as having 4 potential roles. One is as an observer brand, reflecting back what consumers already know and care about. Consumers care about Manchester United, we reflect that back. Second is sponsoring, that's sort of a more traditional construct. It mattered yesterday, it'll matter tomorrow. And the key thing is to do so in ways that enrich the consumer experience. The third is being a curator brand. And we've actually had a lot of success around the world with Mountain Dew with this, which is we gain cultural authority by filtering, the world for the Mountain Dew user, for the Mountain Dew fan. They depend on us to provide that frame for them. So curator brands become more and more important. And then last but not the least is to be a creator brand, where we're creating our own dynamic experiences for our consumers as well. So as we think about brand marketing, think about 2 things. Real-time marketing on one hand, and then secondly, playing in that space as observers, sponsors, curators, and creators. So like with our Lady Gaga example, it's even more powerful if you think of us identifying the 5 million biggest fans and dropping her hottest album or song to them as a in that minute as well. And if we knew that they hadn't heard that, that's when we're adding value to the experience too. So that's the brand's role. Something that we did last fall, which it was a first of its kind, we were very excited about and worked really well, and I think is going to be extremely important in the future, is social TV platforms. So I don't know how many of you know the X Factor. It's sort of the competitor to American Idol. Thank you. There's someone right there who raised his hand. It's Simon Cowell, big in the US, very big in the UK. I know it was in India a bit. It didn't do that well here, though. But it's like American Idol's, singing reality show. So we were anchor sponsors of the X Factor. Now, there were 2 ways we could have approached this. We could have just done a whole bunch of TV advertising, maybe done a bit of, Twitter and Facebook stuff and sort of, called it a day, gone home at 5 p.m. and enjoyed life. Or we could have thought deep. How could we approach this differently? How could we truly add value to the consumer experience? How could we make it such that when people think X Factor, they think Pepsi as much? Because X Factor was just entering the States, and we like to believe that our brand was, 100 times bigger than the X Factor. Apologies, when you're on the brand side, you quickly become arrogant. Don't mind that. So what we did was, we established what was the first brand-led social platform. The way this worked was very simple. It attracted all the fans of the X Factor who wanted to talk about the show in real time as the events were unfolding on TV. Now, your first thought is probably, but isn't that what Twitter is for? There are 2 fundamental differences. The first is, when I talk on Twitter, when I talk on any given subject, because I have a mix of personal friends and work friends on it, I know that any single tweet, while it's engaging one follower, is alienating and isolating another. And with shows like this, we knew that people were highly engaged. They wanted to talk and connect with other consumers who are highly engaged with the TV show. It's sort of like the X Factor geeks come together. So we established the social TV platform. So that was one piece to it. The others, it sort of sat on top of Twitter as like a Twitter client. So, it fed into Twitter. You could log in through Twitter and all of it. But fundamentally, it was a very interesting, simple platform that did a few things. It was for the fans of the X Factor. They would come to this platform. They would basically just share their thoughts and talk to each other about the show in real time. But it had a few interesting pieces to it. first and foremost, it had a deep layer of game mechanics. So I would leave a comment, and depending on the number of replies and the number of thumbs up I got, I would based on that. The more I unlocked, I would get badges. So it was a complete game mechanic layer. So I was always competing for more and more attention. The second piece that was interesting to this was we had VIP guests, like one of the contestants from the X Factor, as soon as he moved off the show. He came in and served as a host on Pepsi Sound Off itself. And the third piece, and the third thing that we did, which was most fun, so this is the leaderboard, imagine, and it would change by the week and by the month. But we did something extra special for whoever was at the top of the leaderboard each week. Guess what we did? Instead of giving them free Pepsi for life, even though we know they would absolutely love that and die for that, we did something else. We put them in a TV ad that ran on X Factor the following week with their comment. So think about that for a moment. We have a TV show, a massive TV show. We have a social TV viewing platform where fans of the X Factor would aggregate and they'd get points and badges and they talk to each other and they hypothesize about the show. And then the reward for the guy who was the most engaged and had the most support, we'd bring it a full circle and put him in the ad on the TV show again. So we connected the dots, 360 fashion all along. When we think about the brand's role in the marketing ecosystem in the future, a pure TV ad is not enough. A pure digital ad is not enough. A pure search ad is not enough. A pure display ad is not enough. A pure timing your ads to correspond with TV or whatever it may be is not enough. It's about these deep consumer experiences that truly add value to consumers' lives. And the X Factor fans love this. It sort of completed the experience for them. The X Factor, the show itself, because we had designed and built something that complemented everything that they were doing. And from our perspective, it proved our narrative. It got amazing engagement. And this platform, once built, guess what we did then? When the Super Bowl happened in the States, Pepsi Sound Off was reskinned for all the Super Bowl fans, and a major NFL athlete served as one of the VIP hosts on it. When the Grammys hit a few weeks later, it was again for the Grammys. So all of a sudden, we had a platform that went from show to show, engaging consumers in real time with different rewards attached to it. So that's the power of connectedness in real time. Something else that we did was, so I'm a data geek. I love data. But it's very easy to get caught up in those exhausting mechanics of like counts and impressions and follower numbers, which are good for distribution, but they're not, I would say, measures of success. So what we did here was we'd aggregate conversations about the X Factor in real time and use it to draw inference about the show itself. So this is an example of, in real time, looking at all the conversations about the show and forming a conclusion that, based on how people were talking about the TV show, this is what this was their opinion of Joel. That's the power, again, of connecting TV to digital and using the data, brand new meaning or new meaning for consumers. And of course, it did very well in the trades. The metrics were fabulous. It's actually been written up in 3 different books since then. But the most interesting and say both amusing and exciting thing for us is actually got attention not just in the digital and the marketing trades, but in our B2B trades like drugstore news. How many of you out here reach drugstore news? You don't have to. But I have to as part of my job. But the reason why I highlight it is it hints at the fact that what happens in digital is pervading and seeping in through every other industry. And even the folks who are the most sort of retail end, furthest away from digital, are starting to care about how digital connects with their world. So that was real-time connectedness. The third theme that I'd like to touch on a bit is how to embrace startup culture everywhere. And it starts with this. So this is what traditional mass marketing looks like today. And it's fair to say, just by learning about the numbers here in India, that here in India they operate in a similar fashion. And this is an oversimplification, but I'd say it's extremely true. If you think about traditional mass marketing, so on the y-axis you have the brands, large, mid-sized, small brands. On the x-axis you have niche, targeted, and mass engagement. The formula is very simple. The bigger the brand, the more you do. The more you spend, the more people you reach. The bigger the artists you use, the bigger the celebrities, the bigger the platforms, the bigger the media partners, the bigger the retail partners, the bigger the technologies. If you're a big brand, life is good, you get to go fancy, you do big, badass marketing, and you get to attend all the most amazing parties and maybe get your photograph in page 3. I don't know, you enjoy life. That's traditional marketing, very simple formula. That doesn't work anymore. What we're finding in our business is however much we may invest in marketing, and we just made a massive reinvestment in marketing around the world at some crazy number, 500-600 million. However much we invest, we still struggle to reach the number of consumers that we need to. And just playing big mass engagement does not do it for enough. So instead, we're seeing a model like this being much more important. And what it really is, that large brands need to engage, whether it's the celebrities, the platforms, or the media partners, or the retail partners, or the technologies, not just when they get big and fancy themselves, but at every stage. That's so important, I emphasize that enough. To give you an example, so I'm sure many of you know Foursquare, even though it's not very big in India, growing exponentially, 30, 40, 50 million users around the world. PepsiCo engaged with Foursquare, and we ran our first test with Foursquare when they had 10,000 users, just 10,000 users. They were tiny. Most brands today, when they call Foursquare, they have a hard time reaching someone senior at Foursquare. In this, it's very easy for us to talk to Dennis, the CEO and founder. It's very easy for us to do something with him. And it's not because we have budgets or because we're Pepsi. It's because we were there with them when they had just 10,000 users. It changes the game completely. Another example is when we think about someone like Bluefin Technologies. They're probably the biggest and the strongest social TV measurement service. We started with them before they even had a product in market. That was amazing. We were able to shape the product to meet our needs, to help their business, and now we're sort of like their favorite partner. It helps them, it helps us, and it helps everyone in the media ecosystem. So that's, for example, with technologies. But it covers celebrities, platforms, everyone in the ecosystem. One of my favorite examples, and this is for all the men who might have been falling asleep, but one of my favorite examples, Sofia Vergara. So she's a massive star in the US and also in certain parts of Europe. She's on Modern Family, the #1 rated TV show in the States, doing amazingly well. She's one of our celebrities with whom we have a very deep relationship with for Diet Pepsi. However, what a lot of people don't know is that 20 years ago, she appeared in a Pepsi ad. So that's her on the left ago, and that's her today. The fact that she was in a Pepsi ad 20 years ago, and God bless the marketing leaders at PepsiCo then for seeking her out and identifying her as someone who had a lot of potential, made it extremely easy for us to do a deep, amazing deal with her today. So when you apply that startup mindset, identifying and partnering with others in the ecosystem well before they become famous, the benefits you get are awesome. So that's something that we've seen a lot. And it's celebrities, it's technologies, it's artists, it's media companies, you name it. Something that we do to enable that and empower that is we have a digital labs initiative where we advise startups, we work with them. In some cases, we do tests with them, or we even do a little bit of funding. But what we found is what they care about most is the mentorship and the assistance for their builds and the opportunity for us to learn from each other. And it produces just immense value all around. So that's embracing the startup culture. Fourth item, my second last one. It's all about going deep on location and with mobile marketing right now. Now, there's no question that mobile is big, especially here in India, of course. It is massive elsewhere in the world, too. But it's always a question about what you do and how. Because otherwise, it doesn't have the same targeting, it doesn't have the same efficiencies necessarily, but there's certain things that you can do. So first, this may be old news for you, but the growth of mobile is off the charts. It's faster than TV, it's faster than radio, it's faster than sort of the traditional internet, growing amazingly fast in the US. That maps to what's happening in Europe and Asia as well. The other piece that's very interesting is certain digital or social platforms are growing immensely on mobile. It's mind-blowing that, the elephant in the room in terms of its size and scale, Facebook, 33% of usage happens through mobile devices. In the case of Twitter, 55% does. In the case of Pandora, which is a digital radio service, which interestingly has between 50 and 60 million users every month, 60% of that usage happens on mobile. So growing exponentially, all kinds of things can be done on mobile. But it's unlocking some fascinating opportunities, something that we've been testing with. So this is one of my favorites. So we partnered with a startup called Local Response to do this. And what they do as a company is they analyze check-ins around the world. So they analyze where you're checking in, whether it's on Foursquare or through Facebook or any other service, both explicitly and implicit check-ins. It then aggregates those check-ins, and for marketers like us, let us sales and offers to people based on where they've checked in. So for example, if someone's about to walk into a Pizza Hut, they're a Pepsi Paw, obviously, we can shoot them a very targeted, very specific, time-sensitive Pepsi deal. That's immensely valuable, and we can see the response we can get. So as I talked about earlier, the reason why mobile is so exciting is it connects the dots from digital to physical, and we sell in the physical world. This is one way that it allows us to do that. Something else that we do that we're starting to see a few other brands do as well, and this is a massive business unlock, is treat our packaging as media. So we're in every street corner in most countries around the world. We're a mass-scale brand. Everyone knows our brand. But we've never really treated our brand, our product, our packaging, as true media itself. So something that last fall, and then again in the States at the time of the Super Bowl, was this Match, Snap, Win program. And it worked in a very simple way. You took a photograph, and this was a joint Frito-Lay Pepsi program. You took a photograph of those two products together, so you have purchase validation there. You send it to an email address. There's advanced image recognition technology. It recognizes you've taken a photograph of the two packages together and sends you back either a special offer or a reward or exclusive content or something like that. Really exciting. We're seeing this happen on a very big scale, especially with the right incentives. Where it gets even more interesting, and what drives us totally crazy, to be honest, is all of a sudden we can pinpoint the locations on a map of the world or the map of a country where this is happening. And we can correlate that sales data to our brand equity metrics, to our distribution data, to our advertising spend in those locations. It's immensely, immensely powerful. So that's package as media, package as digital media. We're starting to think in terms of that whenever we have a reward or something to give our consumers, we should only give it through our package, through digitally enabled packaging, whether it's scans or free-to-lay bags. And this is an example states from that very program where people were snapping, and we could see this change on a day-to-day basis. Immense data. And then if we go back to what I was talking about, real-time marketing, imagine feeding this data into that CRM database where we're capturing everything else about our consumers. Powerful, powerful stuff. So the other piece that this allows us to do in the mobile and physical landscape is take massive properties, tie them to brands, and then tie them to retail. So, how many of you play Call of Duty out here? And I'm in the right crowd. You guys are doing the right things. So Call of Duty 3 launched last October, I think it was. We formed a strategic relationship with Call of Duty, and it worked very simply. With a Mountain Dew bottle, under the cap, you enter the code, and it unlocks special levels in Call of Duty. It did well for Call of Duty. It did immensely well for us. It connected product retail to a digital program, and it was all promoted through digital. The reason why it worked so well, it wasn't that the rewards were that special or extra fancy. The reason it worked so well is because there was a massive overlap between Call of Duty fans and Mountain Dew fans. And it just made natural sense for them together. So driving sales through product, taking it into digital. The last thing I want to mention is sometimes we use digital to drive to our retail partners. Sometimes it's done with precision and science, and sometimes it happens without us even realizing it. So the Summertime Pepsi Time was a big summer program we did. It was designed as being US and Europe-centric, big TV campaign, but we also had a Foursquare piece to it, which is if you checked in at fun summer locations like beaches and swimming pools and all of that, unlock special offers that you could take to the retail partner and get discounts. So it was a very nice TV advertising promoting. It'll call out the Foursquare integration. You check in a fun location, you get an offer. Where it was even more interesting, though, or what was ironical about it, is that what would happen is this didn't just work in the US or in Europe. People all over Asia were checking in at those summer locations and searching for those deals. And this highlights an interesting fact about the digital ecosystem. We're not as advanced as we'd like to believe we are, because ring fencing by geography was simply too difficult for Foursquare to do at that time. So the last piece in this area to touch upon, so this is something that we did with Brisk. This was, instead of just running a big TV campaign, we decided to treat our TV campaign as a tee-up for deeper digital engagement. And we created this mobile app called Brisk Saber. This was in partnership with Star Wars. In a span of 2 weeks, it got 1.2 million app installs, 7.1 minutes of average game time as well. You can only imagine the questions this raised. Now, all of a sudden, we started to ask ourselves, what's the value of a 30-second TV spot that may reach 5 million users versus a mobile app that reaches 1.2 million users, but it's not 30 seconds. It's getting 7.1 minutes of average game time, and it's that game time happening month over month. Crazy stuff. It sort of turns all the mechanics and all the ROI models on their head, which leads to transforming measurement, my last point. So as digital explodes, my one suggestion or thing to think about is measurement is broken, needs so much more work to do. That ad spend in digital is going to increase when there's much sharper measurement. It's a battle I have the privilege of having to fight every day. But there are a few things to help. So first is social conversations can be used as new measures of brand health. So we track brand health for all our major brands based on social conversations. And we go deeper and deeper. So for example, in the case of Pepsi, this is for one market. We analyze volume of conversation and content type, number of conversations that are about advertising, that are about purchase intent. Extremely, extremely valuable data. Something else that we're starting to do is, with digital couponing, we're able to track repeat usage or repeat buy with our brands that may have been triggered first by a digital coupon. Immensely powerful stuff. And then last but not the least, it's also helping us understand how to think about the media ecosystem. This is a dashboard snapshot of different major TV shows in a given day part. So if you look in the top corner, you'll see X Factor, Modern Family, Happy Endings, Criminal Minds, and Harry's Law. What this chart tells us is which TV show has the greatest social engagement online. Now that's really interesting. It's one thing to have a TV show that's getting a lot of users. It's another thing to have a TV show that's getting a lot of engaged users. And that's us. You can bet when we next enter a major negotiation with a media partner around TV ad buys or TV and digital buys, this data is going to be influencing that negotiation as well. And it, of course, leads to this final question. We're used to the world of GRPs, but now with the social space and the TV space and the mobile space all blurring into one and working together in funky different ways, it brings into question the most fundamental TV metric, which many of you on the digital side probably hate or cringe at, the GRPs. Because digital has never had a metric that compared to that, though for the first time now, Comscore and Nielsen both are introducing something. But GRPs themselves isn't enough. You now have something for us to think about as GRPEs, which is gross rating points plus engagement. And that's amazingly powerful, because you can't look at TV in isolation, you can't look at digital in isolation. You need to see how they work together, and you need to be able to measure engagement across all of these. And what it does eventually lead to is the TV ads serving as trailers for deeper digital experiences. So in that small Brisk example, that Brisk mobile app with the 1.2 million app downloads, the TV ad was truly just a trailer for this app that a lot more people were downloading and engaging with. So to conclude, I just want to share a few final thoughts. First and foremost, a big problem with scale, when you market on scale, even in digital, is it can lead to anonymity. Fight that. Whether that be with real-time marketing or connectedness or making the data work in different ways, you've just got to fight that. The second thing is, don't start with the technologies. It's easy to get enamored and caught up by the technologies, but what's most important is starting with the users. And not just the users, but behavior and the data they generate. So as you could see with the X Factor example or Pepsi Pulse, we're taking that data and creating unusual things with it. Third, weave social media through everything you do. I very purposely left out a deep discussion on Facebook. I could have gone in that direction, but I thought you'll probably be getting enough of that between today and tomorrow, and every day you read a trade publication. But also because fundamentally, social media is much bigger than Facebook, or much bigger than what Google may be doing. They're amazing, awesome platforms. The philosophies and the data and the social graph is what matters the most, more than those platforms itself, even though everyone must market on them, and we ourselves here in India have had a lot of success. And last, before that, along with building not just campaigns, it's very important to build platforms. So I talked about how Pepsi Sound Off, we used it for the X Factor, but then we also used it for the Grammys and the Super Bowl. And you can bet when there's a next major pop culture event, we'll be using Sound Off, Pepsi Sound Off again. It's our very own platform. And then last, but not the least, it's early days for digital, whether that be here in India or in Europe or in the Far East or in the States. It's up to all of us to invent it for the future. Thank you very much.